All right, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pinch this leg between my knees, and I'm going to come in with the knife, cutting away from myself. And I'm going to skin this back. And I'm going to try to be real careful when I get close to my leg, cut away from myself for the most part. If I'm cutting towards myself, I slow down. Cut that skin all the way around, and I can grab it and I can just peel it back. And then once you peel it back, you can usually get a hold of this and kind of pull it. Save yourself a little time. And I leave this leg attached so I can hold on to it with my legs. Drop my speed loader. So what I'm trying to do when I'm skinning this back is try to peel the hide away from the meat to try to keep the hair off of it as much as possible. And then I'm going to have my buddy, my cousin Josh here, he's going to come up here and hold this leg up for me. And now I'm going to come through underneath. And I'm going to skin along here, and I'm going to try to be real careful not to even get at all into the gut area and the abdomen. So I just like to, the way I like to do this is about 1 inch at a time. You can take your fingers and kind of come up in here and spread them apart. That also works. But I try to just do it in small chunks. Try to more or less go down the center line. And then you just kind of keep feeling, and you kind of push around. You can feel where the sternum starts and where there's bones protecting all the inner organs. So once you get to that point, which is about here, then you don't have to go so slow. Now I'm just going to skin out one half of her body. Again, peeling the hide away to keep it off the meat. If you happen to cut a hole like that in the hide, it makes a good handle. But the less holes you cut in the hide, the better, because every time you cut a hole, you expose the meat to hair. What's cool is when you go to cut this thing up and process it, if you don't even have to pick anything off the meat, it's just perfectly clean. So that's kind of our goal, is to be as clean as possible and as quick as possible. This is the exit wound, the opposite side she was facing when I got her. Okay, I've skinned basically from the leg, the front leg down, all the way to the center of the back of the animal. So now I'm to the point where what I want to do is cut off this top leg. So when I'm throwing our pack, it's not going to stick out. So what I like to do is look at this joint right here, come up about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then use the back half of your knife right here so you don't dull the skinning part of the front of your knife. Cut all the way around. Cut all those tendons, and then set your knife far away from you, especially if you're doing this in the dark. And then put your leg under it, and then just push. And then there's usually 1 or 2 little tendons to clean up, cut off. And I'll have Josh hold that. I'll make sure I'm ready to cut this off. Looks like we're all the way to the center. So I'm gonna have Josh kind of pull it this way. I'm gonna come down right in the center. And I'm already to the pelvis bone. I can hear it on my knife. And slowly applying pressure. Sometimes you can dick that in there and the little guts will start coming out. Really try not to cut a gut. You can pull that down a little more. As you keep pulling, pretty soon you'll see this little ball joint exposed. It's right there. And once you get through that joint, then I like to just try to run my knife along that pelvis bone. And what happens is we're basically getting 99% of the meat off of this whole hindquarter and the pelvis area, and all those nice roasts and stuff in there, all in one time, and one thing that's easy to throw in a backpack. And it's just kind of a shape like that. You just kind of follow along, right along the edge of the bone, and then you cut out. And we always just put them on that tarp, keep it nice and clean. Alright, so I'm going to move up to this front leg. Again, I'm going to put it between my knees, hold it in place. I'm going to come right on the back side of the leg. I'm going to cut straight down. We're not going to mount this animal, so I'm not being real careful about the cape or anything like that. Pulling skin. Trying to cut as few muscles as possible, leave them all on the animal parts instead of on the skin. I'm going to cut real carefully around my legs, just like on the back leg. And peel that hide off. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut through the hide. And I'm going to skin up the neck, kind of the bottom of the neck, all the way to the base of the skull. And leave all that meat on the carcass so we can grind all that up, make good hamburger out of it. Jerky meat. And again, you notice I'm just kind of folding that skin always back like this away from the meat. Keep as much hair off of it as possible. Okay, so 1/2 of this animal is already skinned out. So now I'm going to, before I cut the front shoulder off, I'm going to show you how to cut this front leg off so it fits in your backpack better. So you look in where the bend of the joint is, you come right to the middle, and again you use the back part of your knife so you don't dull the front. cut all the way around, basically down to the bone, cutting all those tendons. And set your knife down away from you. And then basically put a little arm lock on this. Twist. In a circular motion. Couple twists, and release those twists. And then usually there's just a couple little tendons left to cut. Another cool thing to do, make this easier to handle, is to actually cut a little handle right in there. You're not destroying any meat or anything, just making a place to hold on to. And you pull this back. Now the weird thing about a front shoulder is there's no bones connected. It's all muscle. So you just keep peeling it back, coming back, and then there's the center of the spine. Keep pulling, and there's the front quarter with no dirt, no hair on it. Nice clean trash bags. They open up and they lay open for you. Makes it pretty easy to throw meat in there. And so what I'm going to do is, before I flip this over and get this whole side dirty, I'm going to quickly just take all this muscle and meat off. This is all going to be eventually ground up and be hamburger. And there's bloodshot around here. I'm going to stay several inches away from that, just in case there's any metal shrapnel from the bullet. And I'm just kind of cutting down next to the ribs. So this method, we're not going to take the guts out of the animal. That's kind of a pointless task when you're trying to just do this nice and clean and quickly like that, because this meat is going to cool off very fast being off the carcass. And there's a fair amount of hamburger meat up on the neck too, and so the spine runs through there, and there's two ridges of vertebrae that you can feel when you go like that. There's a ridge there and a ridge there, and so you want to just kind of go on the inside of that ridge, cutting down to those bones, cutting down to the center of the neck. You'll know you're at the center when you see this whitish yellowish, I think it's a tendon probably, and you can grab hold of that meat, pull that off, and there's some nice clean hamburger meat. And I'll do it on the other side of that ridge of bones there. Come right to the other side, I'll cut down. You don't really want to get into the esophagus or where there might be food or other digestive things. There's not a ton of meat on these little deer necks, but we like to try to keep as much as possible. And the other thing I'll point out is, if you were to take the time and cut all the meat out of all these, in between all the ribs and stuff, that is less than an 1/8 inch thick. So I would guess you'd probably only get a pound or two of meat, and it would take you forever. So typically you don't worry about that. You can if you want to, but a lot of regulations and stuff, hunting regulations, as long as you get the quarters and the back straps and the tenderloins out, you're good to go as far as legality. But I definitely like to try to get all the meat I can off of them, within reason. Okay, but you can feel there's the gut. It's already starting to swell a little bit. Usually happens after a kill. Nice clean hamburger meat. See, that neck is feeling good. That's down to bone there. There's a little bit of clean meat past this exit wound. So I'm going to come along to the ribs, sliding down from the ribs. And just kind of graze your knife across those ribs. You can get that thin layer of meat off of there. The most important, the most tasty, my kids love it, is the steak. And so this is called the back strap. So it's from here to here. It's right along the backbone. And so I like to come in and cut right into the ribs, right along the ribs anyway, to get those to start being released. And that shot placement was good. We didn't destroy any of that really good meat, so that's a positive. Cutting straight down now, you can see those bones in there. That's the vertebrae, that's the spine that sticks straight up. So that's the center of the animal. So you want to take your knife and go right along that. And I should be able to take this whole section of back strap out all in one chunk. I like to make sure you lay it back on the animal. You're going to switch and you don't put it on the hair or the ground. Shift your position, I'll come back here. So it's easy to do where the ribs go. The ribs end, you can feel the rib, the last rib is right there. So you just use the ribs as a guide. Now it gets a little trickier because the backbone and vertebrae, they stopped and they're real short right here. I'm also going to take this section of clean hide and I'm going to fold this in so it stays nice and clean while I'm working back here. So you want to just be kind of careful, slow down a little bit here. Cut right up into those bones. Trying not to cut into the gut section. It's no big deal if you do, unless you cut a gut and you gotta wash that meat really fast. So you can see those bones right there. Now I'm down to the center of the spine. And then that hip bone that's right there, you can feel it. And we'll just come to the inside of it and cut right along the edge of it. Straight down to the spine. Again, not getting too deep into the gut section. Alright. So now, I'm just going to go to those up and down vertebrae. I'm going to peel that meat off. Pick it up. And there is your perfectly clean back strap, ready to slice into steaks. What we like to do is grab a separate trash bag and keep the steaks separate from the grinding meat. That'll be my steak bag. The best part of the deer or any wild game is called the tenderloin, and it rests just inside here underneath this these vertebrae bones. And so what you try to do is you're going to try to cut that out without cutting into your guts and stuff like that. Sometimes that happens. If that does, just throw it in a separate bag and wash it really well, but we'll see what happens. So you want to feel those bones right there. You can run your hand across there, you can feel those bones. Put your knife right on the inside of one of those and then keep it running right along that path. So you can see those bones right there. And you can see that tenderloin there starting to poke out. Nice tender piece of meat, really good steaks. See how it's kind of already releasing. It's a good sign. I don't see any gut matter or anything on it. So then you can kind of come in here and it's loosely connected. Once you get it pretty much cut, you can pull this thing out. It's releasing pretty well. Cutting up against the bones to get it to come all the way out. Keep pulling, and you usually have to cut the very top tip of it. And there's your perfectly clean tenderloin. Probably take this on the other side and get a nice little meal out of it.